There was a time in my life when it felt like the whole world had turned its back on me. Every single person I thought I could trust, every shoulder I thought I could lean on eventually turned away. Some grew distant without a word. Some offered comfort once, then disappeared when things got hard. And some simply didn't notice at all. It hurt more than I can ever describe because I wasn't asking for much. Just a little understanding, a moment of kindness, a reminder that I wasn't invisible. But when every shoulder slipped away, I was left standing alone, trembling, uncertain, but still standing. And in that loneliness, I began to learn something I never understood before, that the strength I was searching for in others had been inside me all along. I learned to wipe my own tears, to hold myself steady when the world felt unkind, to whisper to my own heart, "It's okay, you can do this." It wasn't easy. It never is. But sometimes, when every shoulder you lean on disappears, you discover that your own shoulders were strong enough to carry you the whole time. It wasn't that they were cruel. It was just life, I guess. Life was too busy, too demanding, too distracted for them to notice me. And there I was, small, scared, and completely alone. Or at least, that's what I thought. I want you to understand exactly what that felt like. Imagine being so young, with a heart full of hope, and every time you reach out, you are met with silence. Imagine the ache of trying to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, and everyone walks away. It's a hollow kind of loneliness, one that doesn't just hurt your body, but burrows deep into your soul. But even in that darkness, even when everyone seemed to have given up, I didn't. There was a tiny voice inside me whispering, "You can't give up. Not now. Not ever." That small, stubborn spark became the beginning of everything, the journey that would define my life and the lesson I want to share with you today. This story is about hope, resilience, and never giving up, even when the world has turned its back on you. I was just a young girl, standing on the edge of a world I didn't fully understand. Life at home was not easy. My parents worked hard, constantly exhausted from the demands of running our household. They loved me, of course they did, but their love was buried under fatigue, under the constant weight of survival. My siblings were busy with their own lives, their own problems, their own worlds. And friends, well, sometimes friends can be cruel without meaning to. And sometimes they just drift away when they're needed most. I remember one afternoon sitting by the window, watching other children play outside. Their laughter echoed in the streets, bright and carefree, while I sat inside feeling invisible. No one asked me how I was feeling. No one noticed the quiet weight pressing down on my chest. I tried to speak, to reach out, but words seemed to get stuck in my throat. And slowly, I realized something that would shape me forever. In this world, sometimes no one is going to come to your rescue. You have to learn to rescue yourself. One of my earliest struggles was, well, it's hard even to put it into words now. It wasn't just one thing. It was a feeling, a series of small but heavy burdens that piled up on a little girl who didn't know how strong she really was. Perhaps it was a school problem I couldn't solve alone. Perhaps it was a household responsibility that no one else had time to teach me. Or maybe it was just loneliness itself, pressing on me until it felt like the walls of my room were closing in. Whatever it was, it made me feel powerless. And I hated feeling powerless. I remembered the day it all became clear that I was truly alone in this. I had been struggling, trying to make sense of something I couldn't yet control. I turned to my family for guidance. Nothing. I turned to my friends. Nothing. And in that moment, a chilling understanding set in. Everyone had given up on me, not out of malice, but simply because life had pulled them elsewhere. And I realized, if I wanted to survive, if I wanted to live through this, I had no choice but to keep going myself. The days that followed were some of the hardest I have ever lived. Every morning felt like climbing a mountain that kept growing taller. I would wake up with hope that today, somehow, someone would notice me. Someone would help me. But no. Doors remained closed, voices grew impatient, eyes looked through me as if I were nothing at all. I tried everything I could think of to solve my problems. I sought advice, I attempted to fix mistakes, I worked harder than I thought a little girl could work. And still, failure, rejection, disappointment. There were days when I wanted to curl up in a corner and disappear, when even breathing felt like too much effort. I cried rivers of tears that no one ever saw. I shouted in my room, screamed to an empty house, and the walls remained silent. The world seemed indifferent, and I was alone. But even in that darkness, that tiny voice inside me refused to let me quit. "You can't give up," it whispered. "Not now, not ever." I clung to that voice like a lifeline. Every failure became a lesson, every closed door a test of my willpower. I learned to pick myself up, wipe my tears, and try again. I realized something important. Sometimes no one else will fight for you. If you want to survive, you must fight for yourself. I remember sitting at my small wooden desk late into the night, writing everything down. My thoughts, my fears, my little plans, my fleeting hopes. I wrote them all. And slowly, I started noticing small victories. The first time I solved a problem on my own, without anyone's guidance, I felt a spark inside me. It was faint at first, barely noticeable, but it grew with each attempt. That spark became my courage. I stumbled countless times. I made mistakes that felt too big to fix. I felt embarrassed, hopeless, and exhausted. And yet, I kept going. Every time I thought I couldn't go any further, I reminded myself, if everyone has given up, I will not. I will try, I will fight, I will survive. It became my mantra, a quiet, stubborn determination that whispered to me in the dead of night, telling me to keep moving, even when my body and mind wanted to collapse. During those long nights, I discovered things about myself I had never known. I discovered patience I didn't know I possessed. I discovered an inner strength that was quietly growing with each challenge. I discovered courage in its simplest, truest form. Not in grand gestures, not in applause or recognition, but in the act of simply standing up and moving forward when every fiber of your being wants to give in. I practiced over and over. I rehearsed conversations in my head. I wrote solutions, scrapped them, and wrote again. Every failure became a stepping stone. Every disappointment taught me resilience. And slowly, imperceptibly, I began to change. I was no longer the helpless little girl I had been. I was becoming someone who could face her own fears, who could navigate challenges without waiting for a savior. And that realization, more than anything else, gave me hope. There were nights, though, when despair would creep in like a shadow. I would sit in the dark, staring at my hands, wondering if I was truly alone forever. But even in those moments, that tiny voice remained, soft, unwavering, and firm. You are stronger than you know. You can do this. Keep going. I clung to it with everything I had, because it was all I had. And eventually, that was enough. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. It wasn't sudden, and it wasn't dramatic. There were no grand celebrations, no confetti falling from the sky, just small moments that felt like tiny victories. And in those moments, I began to realize something important. I was capable. I was stronger than I had ever believed. I remember the first time I solved a problem completely on my own. It wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't perfect, but it worked. I didn't run to anyone to announce it, and no one came running to congratulate me, but I felt it deep in my chest, a flicker of pride, of accomplishment, of knowing that I had done something that I didn't think I could. That tiny victory, that small act of success, gave me hope. And hope is dangerous in the best way possible. It makes you keep going. I began to notice other changes in myself. I discovered patience I had never realized I possessed. I found ways to stay calm in moments of fear. I learned to listen to my inner voice, that quiet, stubborn part of me that refused to give up no matter what. And every time I took one small step forward, I felt a growing confidence. It was subtle, almost invisible to others, but I could feel it like a fire growing within me. I started journaling regularly. I wrote about my fears, my mistakes, and even my little wins. I wrote plans for what I could do differently, solutions for problems that seemed impossible, and ideas for how to survive the next day. Writing became my companion, my counselor, my mirror. It helped me understand my thoughts, organize my feelings, and see that I was making progress, even if no one else noticed. There were setbacks, of course, more than a few. Days when everything seemed to crumble, when my efforts seemed meaningless, when it felt as though the world was laughing at my struggles. But those setbacks taught me patience and resilience. I began to understand that life doesn't hand out success on a silver platter. You earn it, step by step, mistake by mistake, tear by tear. And slowly, I began to earn it for myself. One evening, I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, exhausted and frustrated, yet unwilling to quit. I thought about the months I had endured alone, the countless moments when despair had whispered that it was too late, too hard, too much. And I realized it wasn't too late. I wasn't too weak. I could continue and I could succeed. That thought became my anchor, and I clung to it like a lifeboat in a stormy sea. During those times, I also noticed subtle changes in the people around me. Not everyone, of course. My parents were still busy, my siblings preoccupied, but some people started to see me differently. Perhaps it wasn't my words or my demands. They simply noticed that I wouldn't quit. They saw someone who refused to give up, and without even trying, that gave me a quiet sense of pride, the kind that doesn't come from recognition, but from knowing your own strength. Each small victory, each tiny success was a brick and a foundation that I didn't realize I was building. The foundation of self-belief, resilience, and courage. By the time the weeks turned into months, I was no longer the scared, helpless little girl who had cried alone in her room.
I was learning to trust myself, to believe in my own decisions, and to know that even if no one else believed in me, that wasn't necessary. I had everything I needed inside. Looking back now, I can see that this period of my life was the most important. It taught me that victory doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it comes quietly, unnoticed, in the moments when you keep moving forward despite exhaustion, fear, and despair. And that, my dear ones, is when you discover your true strength.
Then one day, after months of struggle, something incredible happened. I had been trying, failing, learning, and growing quietly, almost invisibly. And yet, that effort was finally starting to pay off. It wasn't loud, it wasn't celebrated, and no one threw me a parade, but the change was undeniable. The first major success came, small yet powerful, like a single ray of sunlight breaking through a stormy sky. I remembered the exact moment I realized that I didn't need anyone else's approval. I didn't need people to cheer for me or tell me I was doing well. What mattered was that I had kept going when everyone else had given up. That realization hit me like a wave, calm yet overwhelming, and I felt something shift deep inside me. I had always believed strength came from outside, from parents, from friends, from the world noticing me. But now I understood. Strength comes from within. With each small victory that followed, my confidence grew. I could see it in the way I carried myself, in the way I spoke, and in the quiet certainty that no matter what came next, I could handle it. I began taking challenges head on, not expecting help, not waiting for anyone's permission. Every step forward felt like a triumph. And slowly, people began to notice, not because I demanded attention, but because they saw someone who refused to quit, someone who refused to be defeated. One of the most powerful moments during this time was realizing that I had become my own mentor, my own supporter. When I failed, I encouraged myself. When I doubted, I reminded myself of every tiny victory I had already achieved. When I was exhausted, I forced myself to take one more step. And with every step, I was no longer the scared little girl who had once sat in her room crying. I had transformed into someone who knew her own worth, someone who believed in herself. I still remember the look of surprise on people's faces when they began to notice me. Not everyone, but some did. A teacher, a friend, a distant relative. They saw that I didn't give up. They saw resilience in action. And it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. That, my dear ones, is a lesson I want you to carry. Sometimes the greatest recognition you will ever receive comes from yourself, and that's more than enough. By the time the challenge was fully behind me, I was transformed. I was stronger, wiser, and more certain of my own worth than I had ever been. I realized that everything I had gone through, the tears, the rejection, the loneliness, was not wasted. It had forged me into someone capable of facing anything life could throw at me. I had discovered a power inside myself that no one could ever take away, a strength that had always been there, quietly waiting for me to claim it. I want you to understand something important. Perseverance isn't glamorous. It doesn't always feel heroic. It's quiet, stubborn, relentless. It's the small, repeated choice to keep moving forward even when your body is tired, your heart is heavy, and everyone else has given up. That is where true strength lives. And so, in that turning point, I learned the most important lesson of my life. You do not need everyone to believe in you. You do not need constant validation. What you need is courage.
the quiet determination to say, I will not give up. I will keep going. If you do, the world may take notice eventually, or it may not. But you will know your own strength, and that's more than enough.
Now, my dear ones, I am 70 years old. My hair is silver. My hands are lined with years of laughter, struggle, and everything in between. My heart has carried sorrow and joy, fear and courage. And when I look back at that time, the time when I felt completely alone, I realize one simple truth. The strength to survive and thrive was always within me. Life has a way of testing us, doesn't it? It will push you to your limits, challenge your patience, and sometimes make you feel like no one believes in you. Friends may drift away. Family may be too busy or preoccupied to notice your struggles. The world may seem cruel. But here's what I learned. In those moments, you have a choice. You can give up, or you can keep going. You can let despair win, or you can rise quietly, stubbornly, and courageously. I learned that true courage isn't always about grand gestures. It's in the small choices you make every day. Choosing to try one more time, choosing to keep moving forward when your body is tired, choosing to believe in yourself when no one else does. And the beauty of this kind of courage is that it multiplies. Each small step builds your confidence. Each quiet victory reminds you of your own strength, and eventually, those steps carry you far beyond what you ever imagined possible. I also learned that failure is not the enemy. It is a teacher. Every time I stumbled, every time I cried, every time I felt like giving up, I learned something new about the world, yes, but more importantly, about myself. I discovered reserves of patience, resilience, and wisdom I never knew existed. And that, my dear ones, is the real reward. Discovering that you are far stronger than you ever believed. Sometimes, when life seems unbearable, when the people around you don't understand, and when you feel like giving up, remember this: you are not powerless. You have everything you need inside. Your courage, your persistence, your hope. These are the tools that will carry you through even in the darkest of times. And when you keep going, even quietly, even without recognition, the world eventually sees your strength.
So now, my dear ones, let me leave you with this. When everyone gives up on you, do not give up on yourself. Keep walking, keep fighting, keep believing. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. Every choice to try again, even when it seems impossible, is proof of your strength. You do not need constant validation or approval from anyone. You do not need the applause of the world. What you need is the courage to say, I will not give up. I will keep going. That is all. And when you do, you will discover something miraculous, the power inside you that no one can take away, the strength that has been waiting for you all along. I have lived a long life and I have faced countless challenges, but the memory of that little girl sitting alone, scared and desperate, reminds me of one truth. Resilience is born in the moments when no one else is watching. Every tear, every failure, every lonely night, every small choice to try again, it all shapes you into someone who can face the world with courage, confidence, and hope. And if you remember nothing else from my story, remember this. It's not about who believes in you, or who notices you, or who applauds you. It's about believing in yourself. It's about refusing to quit. It's about taking one step forward, even when everything seems impossible. Because that one step leads to another, and eventually you will reach a place where your strength shines so brightly it cannot be ignored. So, my dear ones, when everyone else has given up, keep going. Keep believing in yourself. Keep taking one step, then another, and another. Your courage can light your way even through the darkest nights. And one day, when you look back, you will see just how far you've come, and you will know that giving up was never an option, because inside you there was always a spark waiting to ignite. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you of the power you already carry within. Remember, even when the world turns its back, you have the strength to stand, to fight, and to shine.